Welcome to the Creative Genius Podcast with Nicolette Wilson-Clarke. Hello and welcome. This is Nicolette on the Creative Genius Show. It's such a pleasure to be here once again. I have to say, just to share with everybody, just as if you're in the room with me, the studio is mighty hot today. Mighty hot. But luckily, I'm in short sleeved because I learnt a while back that do not wear anything that has long sleeves and can show your armpits. As in, you know, the armpit sweat, the patch, and it's a light colour, and then the sweat is a dark colour. You know, like, no! So I've learned, so it's always sleeveless. So how is everybody today? I hope you're well, and I've got an amazing guest in the studio. Let me just remind you who you're listening to. You're listening to Nicolette on the Creative Genius Show, and this is the local radio show that supports the creative in learning all about their emotional intelligence, who they are, so that they can tap into their genius courageously and manage whatever comes their way. And on today's show, I have a really inspirational guest whose smile just makes me feel so warm and accepted whenever I see it. And her professional singing career spans over 15 years. However, I'm sure it started way earlier than that. We're going to find out a little bit about that. She sung for the Royal Shakespeare Company in Antony and Cleopatra, Stratford-upon-Avon, performed on Jazz FM's label as well as for them, and sung at Pizza Express Dean Street, sold out Ronnie Scott's, opened for Gregor Porter, worked with the Streets and Alicia Dixon, and toured in China, Brazil, US, and Sweden. Yeah! And if that's not enough, this amazing soul has a new album out. Plus, she has founded and hosts a live music and discussion event for the creative professional called the Fika Sessions. I'm really looking forward to finding out more about everything she cares to share with us today. And it gives me such pleasure to introduce onto the Creative Genius Show today, Cecilia Stalin. Hello, Cecilia.
Hey.
Hey, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm really good, thank you. It's so lovely to have you here today. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me. It's great.
Good. Now, let's start with where your love of singing and music came from. So can we take a minute, just kind of rewind a bit and let my audience just get to know who is this Cecilia Stalin, just sitting in the chair?
I think I've grown up in a household in the very sticks of Sweden. I literally come from a small village with about 9,000 people.
Really, everybody knows everybody.
So everybody knows everybody, but also it's a very kind of community based village. And so, you know, when I grew up, we would have, a space where kids could hang out. There were all these like things to encourage young people to learn music, do theater. There was a lot of space because it's not like London where everything costs money.
Right.
So I think in combination when having the resources and having people be there for you when you need help, I also grew up in a family that loves music.
Okay.
So my dad was a dentist, and he plays a stride piano.
What piano is that?
So stride piano is like the very early form of jazz. So Fats Waller, Art Tatum, Earl Hines, and it's the same era as Billie Holiday when she came out. So we're talking about 1910, 1920s. And so having that, my mom has always been really, really big on classical music.
Your mum?
Yeah, and my grandmother.
Okay.
So I had like the classical music side from her. And then my dad always played or listened to jazz. So
Wow.
I grew up with Billie Holiday, Ella Fitzgerald, Ernestine Anderson, Oscar Peterson, Fats Waller, and my dad had a 10-piece Dixieland band.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Just chuck that in at the end.
And then we had a big basket of instruments, like rhythmical instruments.
Yeah.
You know, kids.
So
use
percussive
them.
stuff.
Yeah, percussive stuff. And then we had another box next to where we could have dress-up clothes. So it was very creative. And my dad would always play, and he would be like, Cecilia, come here. And he would play a song, and he's like, do you know this song? And I would be like, no. And then he was like, oh, it sounds so beautiful if you would sing it. And I was like, okay. And so then I would learn all these songs when I was about 5.
Wow.
So I think it was just a very creative, musical environment. And I think, and then with that, growing up in a society where I was allowed to be responsible at a very early age.
Yeah, okay.
I think nurtured that kind of wanting to do stuff. Connecting with your friends in ways that for a lot of kids in a big city would never be possible, because the spaces to practice with a band or to do other things are just not there.
Right, okay. So what sort of things were you able to be responsible at or with or about?
Everything from cycling to school on my own, to having great schools that would challenge you. So when I was 10, I did my first fake election, and I had to vote in school.
That's amazing.
Yeah, and I asked my dad. I was like, "What do you vote for, Dad?" And he was like, "I'm not going to tell you, because you need to have your own opinion." And I was like, "But Dad," and I was like, "Okay, cool. I gotta put the work in. I gotta read. I gotta do."
So there's a learning there, isn't there?
Yeah.
Like I can't just ask.
Taking the responsibility and having that. And I think having the spaces to be able to have band practices and or go to the community center and just hang out.
Yeah.
If you didn't have anything to do, you could always go there with your friends and play ping pong.
So it was just open during the day?
It was just open. It was just open in the evenings. I think it was always open. So during the days, maybe mothers with small babies came, and there are definitely spaces like that here, but I find that a lot of them have been closed.
They have, and also there's an expense behind it, as you mentioned.
Yeah. But of course there's an expense. There's always an expense because you got to pay for the staff. But when there's not a control of the kind of inflation of the real estate market, do you know?
Yeah.
When the government don't say you can't charge a community center X whatever you want, do you know? Then there's a value. You're putting a value on community, and I think that's what's lost here.
I would agree with you, and that was what was at the back of my mind when I said that thing about money is people charging you ridiculous prices because you want to support mothers or children with cystic fibrosis and have a day centre or something.
I mean, there's so many things that I would love to do, you know, but it's impossible because you have to pay for stuff so much. Yeah.
So you've got to this point now where did you ever have a band?
Yeah.
So how many piece band?
I mean, I was 13 when I started in a band, and I was a keyboard player.
So you play instruments?
Well,
you dabble. I call it I pretend to play instruments.
Yeah. I'm like supporting my vocals.
Love it. Just get the right note there, get the right key.
Yeah, exactly. La la la. Yeah. Exactly. So I kind of I started in a rock band as a keyboard player, and then the singer that was gonna sing, she got stage fright and cancelled the night before. And I think that happens all the time. We were only 13, and it's a lot of pressure.
Yeah, it is. I was thinking
150 kids
in the audience.
Yeah. So
I was thinking, really, that's an opportunity for you, actually, as opposed to a judgment on her. I was thinking,
yeah.
really, like, oh my gosh, that's how you stepped in.
Yeah, absolutely. And I was doing BVs already, so it was that kind of, and they just said, you just have to sing. And then actually they then noticed that I was pretty good. So then it was like, okay, you take over now. And then it just kept on going. My parents were always super supportive if I wanted to go for like, there were all these music competitions for young people in Sweden.
Right, yeah.
And so we did loads of them. I mean, I don't know how my parents did.
So do you have to pay to enter when you do those things
No.
there? Right, so you just enter and you get all this wonderful experience of what it's like with your backline, with your equipment, with setting up, with all of that
listening
stuff.
to other bands that are
Right.
really good. You get like a bit of, you understand that there are great people out there and that, that you got
a bit of competition.
Put in the hours. yeah. Got competition. It's very healthy and learning that kind of to lose early on and understanding that, okay, so we lost, but it's not the end of the world. Let's keep on going.
Yeah.
What we have is unique and this is good and maybe we need to refine certain things and how can we make this better and so.
And that's really interesting because you're talking about what in my world is called a growth mindset.
Yeah.
Is this thing about realizing that actually it's about the effort I put in that gets the result. And if that effort doesn't manifest into a positive outcome, it's no reflection on